We are live on two. Okay, everyone. I think we're good to go, and you will be happy to know that this is also going live on YouTube, but it's on my private channel, and maybe 10 years down the line, I'll let you listen to this class again, but not anytime soon. Anyway, coming to what we have been discussing yesterday, I think it's important that we kind of revise what I have said about modernism, look at it again and try to understand the nuances that I have been trying to make you understand. Right. Just a point outside of modernism. If you have difficulty listening to me, you can use the chat box to let me know. If you have questions, use the chat box to let me know, and we can then start a discussion. If you have a good connection, you can also, after you ask me to do so on the chat box, unmute yourself and we can have a conversation in an old-fashioned way. But I am really happy to be having classes again, and this is a wonderful opportunity for us to keep learning and work towards I don't know what, because exams don't seem to be on the cards at the moment, but someday they will happen, and I hope by then I will be able to have you all ready for those exams in a way that is meaningful and also useful. So coming back to modernism and things that had changed in terms of history, in terms of society, both its fabric and its structure, in terms of how in the world of ideas we started perceiving reality and everything else that comes along with it. So, I mean, you have to take note of various changes, and one of them I did not mention yesterday was the ideas about language of the Swiss-German linguist, Swiss-French linguist Ferdinand de Saussure, who talks about in the idea of the signifier and the signified in his semiotics. And the signifier is the word cat, for example, and the signified is the furry animal that we call beral or billi or whatever else you may want to call it. And there is no permanent connection between the two entities, as it were. The signifier, যেটা ল্যাঙ্গুয়েজের জগতে আছে, ক্যাট বলতে যে একটা এই লোমালা মিষ্টি মতো প্রাণী বোঝাবে, সেটার কোনো fixed ব্যাপার নেই. We could have called a mongoose a cat, we could have called a squirrel a cat, and that thing would have been known as a cat. So this combination, the connection between the signifier and the signified is arbitrary, and therefore language itself is arbitrary in the way it generates meaning. When you and I both agree that this particular animal will be called a cat, therefore our conversations generate meaning, otherwise it would not have generated meaning. And then that is something to think about alongside the ideas that I've already told you about of Freud, of Marx, and of Darwin, not necessarily in that order, that changes our thinking about reality and also challenges the validity of both religion and the idea of the existence of an all-knowing, benevolent God. And I mean, of course, as I pointed out, that much later on when postmodernism arrives, really, or modernism recedes, and no one knows what arrives, because there's always a lot of controversy about what postmodernism exactly means, we have this situation where the way we perceive, so I mean in postmodernism, is that well, the universe is what it is irrespective of the existence of God, so why bother with God, let's get on with our lives. But when it first hits you that the way you perceive your religion, the way you perceive your beliefs, the way you perceive everything is now challenged by ideas, not exclusively but certainly led by these figures like Marx and Engels, like Charles Darwin, like Sigmund Freud, and like Ferdinand de Saussure. We have ideas that question the validity of your existence as a biological being, i.e. Darwin, as a psychological being, i.e. Freud, as a social being, i.e. Marx and Engels, and as a linguistic being, or how your whole linguistic existence challenges your challenges the ways we have traditionally perceived meaning and language as something fixed, and therefore adding a lot of fluidity to everything that we understand, to reception itself, reception through language, reception through images, reception through the idea that... Now, what is so important about God? Not so much God the creator, but the fact that God is supposed to be omnipotent. So what's happening? তাহলে ঈশ্বর তোমার মনের কথাটা জানতে পারে। এবার তুমি এরকম করে হাত নাড়ছিলে, হাত নাড়া আনন্দে চড়াম করে এসে আমার গায়ে চটটা এসে লাগলো, তাতে আমি ভীষণ রেগে গেলাম। কিন্তু you can at least believe যে God knew that you didn't want to slap this person. তুমি কারোর বাড়ি থেকে একটা সোনার গয়না ব্যয় করে নিয়ে চলে এলে ভুল করে, সে তোমাকে চোর বলল, কিন্তু যদি ঈশ্বর থেকে থাকে, তিনি জানছেন তুমি চোর নও, আর কেউ না জানলেও হবে। কিন্তু যদি ঈশ্বর omnipotent না হন, তাহলে তোমার এই মনের কথাটা কে জানবে? কেউ জানবে না। আর এর উল্টো দিকটাও আছে, তুমি যখন ভুল করে এনেছো, সে বিশ্বাস করে নিচ্ছে তুমি ভুল করে এনেছো, কিন্তু তুমি জানো তুমি চুরি করেছিলে, সেটাই বা কে জানবে? So there's this whole problem with perception if there is no God. এটাই সবথেকে বড় সমস্যা। কিন্তু it's not so much that God will answer your prayers, but that God keeps an eye on everything and God validates everything in terms of reality. এটা এক নম্বর। দুই নম্বর হচ্ছে what is it that society being fixed does to you? It gives you a sense of certainty. সেখানে যদি এখন ক্লাস স্ট্রাগল হয়, বারবার সামাজিক এবং ইকোনমিক ব্যবস্থা বদলানোর কথা হয়, যেমন মার্কস বলছেন এঙ্গেলসের সাথে তার লেখাতে, তখন যেটা দাঁড়ায় যে তাহলে তো আমাদের সমাজটা ফিক্সড নয়। ডারউইন বলছে ইভলিউশন, আমি আমার হাতের দিকে তাকাচ্ছি, ইটস supposed to be final, but it's not. আমার সারা গায়ে সেল ডিভিশন হচ্ছে, আমি চেঞ্জ করছি রোজ, and then I become someone else because I'm changing. Evolution, আমার ছেলে আমার থেকে ডিফারেন্ট, তার মেয়ে তার থেকে ডিফারেন্ট, তার ছেলে মেয়ে আমাদের সবার থেকে ডিফারেন্ট, and evolution progress এগিয়ে যাচ্ছে। we're supposed to have descended from monkeys. Damn. So এই যে বিভিন্ন Freud is talking about ego and superego, talking about the subconscious mind. এই সবগুলোর ফলে যেটা তৈরি হচ্ছে, the way we perceive reality, not so much reality itself, changes. এবং এই যে রিয়ালিটি পারসিভ করার জায়গাটা, কিভাবে আমরা রিয়ালিটিকে রিসিভ করব, সেই জায়গাটা যেহেতু এরকম ভাবে ধাক্কা খাচ্ছে, সেই জন্য আর্ট, which is either directly or obliquely a way of representing reality, has to continuously find new idioms, new ways in which it tries to represent reality, giving rise to the multiple isms that we have been discussing, starting with expressionism, impressionism, Dadaism, cubism, and various other isms, that surrealism, that come back to back within the ambit of the larger term modernism. এই আর্টিস্টিক এক্সপেরিমেন্টেশন গুলোর কথা আমাদের জানাটা খুব জরুরি, না হলে we will not be able to access the fragmented narrative technique of Eliot's poetry, particularly his early poetry. আমি কালকে যেটা বলতে চেয়েছিলাম সেটা আরেকটু গুছিয়ে দিলাম। Are you following me so far? Would you like to ask me a few questions right now? Then please do so. Then I can move on to some other things that we would need to discuss. আচ্ছা, ডিউক বিশ্বাস হিসেবে কে এসেছো আমাদের মধ্যে? পরিচিতই কেউ হবে, তার নামটা বলে দিও, তাহলে অ্যাটেন্ডেন্স করতে পরে সুবিধা হবে। প্রশ্ন টশ্ন নেই? ওকে, কোনো প্রশ্ন নেই? নো কোয়েশ্চেন্স? আই সাবাস। ফেনোমেনোলজি বলে দিচ্ছি, 2 মিনিট টাইম নিচ্ছি, জল খেয়ে আসছি, বলে দিচ্ছি। বাহ, খুশি হয়েছি প্রশ্নটা করাতে, খুব খুশি হয়েছি। ফিনোমেনোলজি Okay. Is that problem for everyone? I mean, is it from my end that you have a bad network, or is it at the receiving end that you have a bad network? সকলে কি শুনতে পাচ্ছে? আচ্ছা, ঠিক আছে। So this is what phenomenology is. Cyrene, I wasn't talking about phenomenology in the philosophical sense. I was talking about phenomenology being challenged. Acha, let me just disappear. How about going sound only, and then you can probably hear me better. So I am switching off the video, therefore making it easier for you to access the audio, and hopefully this will work well. I hope you can hear me better now. Cyrene, what I'm trying to say about phenomenology is that phenomenology is that which appears, and logy of course logos, so is a philosophical study of the structures of experience and consciousness. এবার আমি যেটা বলতে চাইছি যে যখন ফ্রয়েড বললেন তোমার মাইন্ড আনস্টেবল, when Darwin says that we are going, I mean, life comes through evolution, and that evolution probably is still continuing, and he also talks about the struggle for existence. Marx বলছেন about social class structures and class struggle, এবং ল্যাঙ্গুয়েজের ইনস্টেবিলিটির কথা বলছেন সেমিওটিক্সের মাধ্যমে সিওর, তখন ইউর ফিনোমেনোলজিক্যাল এক্সপিরিয়েন্স ইজ বিকামিং আনস্টেবল। মানে তোমার কনসিয়াসনেসটা যদি আনস্টেবল হয়, তাহলে দ্য ওয়ে ইউ পারসিভ রিয়ালিটি বিকামস আনস্টেবল। তোমার ল্যাঙ্গুয়েজের কোনো ফিক্সিটি নেই, তোমার সোসাইটির কোনো ফিক্সিটি নেই, তোমার মনের কনসিয়াসনেসের কোনো স্টেবিলিটি নেই, তোমার কিছুরই তাহলে স্টেবিলিটি নেই, ঠিক তো? এবং দিস ইজ কাপলড উইথ সাম অফ দি অ্যাকচুয়াল চেঞ্জেস দ্যাট হ্যাভ টেকেন প্লেস। ইন্ডাস্ট্রিয়াল রেভলিউশন হচ্ছে, ইন্ডাস্ট্রিয়ালাইজেশন হচ্ছে, ইন্ডাস্ট্রিয়ালাইজেশন থেকে আরবানাইজেশন হচ্ছে, আরবানাইজেশনের ফলে বহু মানুষ তাদের জমি থেকে কাজ করতো ছেড়ে গিয়ে শহরে কারখানায় কাজ করছে। কারখানায় কাজ করছে মানে সেখানে শহরে যখন যাচ্ছে তখন গিয়ে দেখছে সেখানে কেউ তাদেরকে চেনে না, কেউ তাদেরকে চেনে না, তারা একা, তারা এমন একটা কাজ করছে যেটা তারা হয়তো একটা ফ্যাক্টরিতে কাজ করে যেখানে একটা কাজের 10টা স্টেপের মধ্যে শুধু 7th স্টেপটা তারা করে, ফলে দে আর গেটিং এলিয়েনেটেড ফ্রম দেয়ার ওয়ার্ক। তারা কিন্তু জিনিসটা আসলে তৈরি করতে পারবে না। এন্ড ইউ ক্যান রেফার টু ওয়াল্টার বেনিয়ামিন অন দিস, the role of the artist in the age of mechanical reproducibility. এগুলো নিয়ে আমরা পরে যদি মডার্নিজম নিয়ে আরো বড় করে আলোচনা করতে চাই তখন করব। কিন্তু এই পরিবর্তনগুলো আমাদের মাথায় রাখতে হবে টু আন্ডারস্ট্যান্ড ওয়াই দেয়ার ওয়াজ দিস ম্যাসিভ 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 almost competition to find new idioms of representation. আচ্ছা বাচ্চে লোক, এখন কি বেটার শোনা যাচ্ছে? For those who had been having disturbances receiving, can you hear better? না, তোরা তো শুনতে পাচ্ছিলি, দেখতেও পাচ্ছিলি, কিন্তু যারা শুনতে পাচ্ছিল না, অসীমা, বেনাজির and all of them, বেশ। So unfortunately you don't have to see me, you can only see my photo and that should work. দ্বিতীয় কথা হচ্ছে, have you understood the very complex point I was trying to make? যে মানে ফিনোমিনোলজি মুভমেন্টটা হুসার্লের, আমি ফিনোমিনোলজি সেই সেন্সে ব্যবহার করছি না, আমি বলছি ফিনোমিনোলজি অর দ্য স্টাডি অফ কনসিয়াসনেস যদি দেখা হয়, আমাদের কনসিয়াসনেসটা কতখানি স্টেবল, আমাদের রিসেপশন অফ নলেজটা কতখানি স্টেবল, এবং এমপিরিক্যাল ট্রুথ বলে কিছু হওয়া সম্ভব কিনা, এই আইডিয়াগুলো সম্পূর্ণ ভেঙে যাচ্ছে। and hence the necessity of finding new mediums of expression, নতুন নতুন ভাবে ছবি বা কবিতা লেখার প্রয়োজন হচ্ছে যেখানে এই ভাঙাচোরা বাস্তবটাকে আমরা দেখাতে পারি। That's what I am trying to say. এই পয়েন্টটা কি পরিষ্কার হলো? বেশ, সো আবার পরিষ্কার করে দিচ্ছি যে I wasn't using phenomenology in the sense Husserl used it, but I am using phenomenology as the study of consciousness, এবং এই স্টাডি অফ কনসিয়াসনেসটা মানে not so much the academic study of consciousness, but the way we perceive our consciousness changes in a big way. সেটা এখন তুমি বলতে পারো বারবার হয়েছে, কিন্তু এক্ষেত্রে এটা মনে রাখতে হবে যে দ্য চেঞ্জিং রিয়ালিটিস, এবং তারপরে বিশ্বযুদ্ধ আসছে, সেখানে আরো করে এই সামাজিক স্টেবিলিটি ঘেঁটে যাওয়ার ব্যাপারটা তৈরি হচ্ছে। দুটো, প্রথম বিশ্বযুদ্ধ একরকম ভাবে শেষ হচ্ছে, তখন সবাই ভাবছেন যে যাক একটা যুদ্ধ শেষ হলো, কিন্তু মনের মধ্যে একটা লিঙ্গারিং টেনশন থেকে যাচ্ছে যে আবার একটা বিশ্বযুদ্ধ হবে, এবং ঠিক তাই হচ্ছে, which is even more destructive, এবং then you have something like the atom bomb, and which causes utter destruction, এবং সেই ভয়ঙ্কর যে একটা বোতাম টিপে একটা শহরকে নিশ্চিহ্ন করে দেওয়া যায়, এইরকম একটা পরিস্থিতিতে you have to revise the way you write literature. আমি সেই কথাটাই বলবার চেষ্টা করছে। The way you paint, the way you write literature, the way you do any kind of mimetic or representational activity then becomes something that changes, right? এটাই আমার বক্তব্য ছিল। Now I think I'll take a 2-minute break and come back and start showing you a video. Acha, does everyone have the poem? Okay. Have you gone to the classroom and tried to watch the videos that I've already provided you?
Let us go.
Have you watched the videos? If not, then, or even if you have, let us listen into T.S.Eliot reading his poem.
So then, you and I, when the evening is spread out against the sky like a patient etherized upon a table, let us go through certain half-deserted streets, the muttering retreats of restless nights in one-night cheap hotels and sawdust restaurants with oyster shells, streets that follow like a tedious argument of insidious intent to lead you to an overwhelming question. Oh, do not ask, what is it? Let us go and make our visit. In the room the women come and go, talking of Michelangelo. The yellow fog that rubs its back upon the window pane, the yellow smoke that rubs its muzzle on the window panes, licked its down into the corners of the evening, lingered upon the pools that stand in drains, let fall upon its back the soot that falls from chimneys.
I mean, right now I paused the video, but can you clearly get the sound from whatever I am playing for you? When I speak, can you hear me? Okay. You can hear me when I speak, but you can't hear the video. Good. Then go out. আমি যে লিংকটা দিয়েছি ওটা ক্লিক করো, ইউটিউবে খুলে যাবে কবিতাটা। শোনো, ইউটিউবে কবিতাটার প্রথম কতটা শুনবে?
Slipped by the terrace, made a sudden leap, and seeing that it was a soft October night, curled once about the house and fell asleep.
1 মিনিট 20 সেকেন্ডে দেখো ফল অ্যাসলিপ আছে। ওই অবধি শোনো, তারপর আমি বাকিটা বলছি। ঠিক আছে, শুনে নাও, তাহলে ইউটিউবে গিয়ে শুনে নাও, নিয়ে ফিরে এসো। Okay, so you got back. Fine. You can hear my voice part. Okay, so just one moment. I just my book somewhere else. Give me a second. Give me my book. Okay, so I'll be sharing with you certain materials soon, but before I do that, let me read it for you. The Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock was began at Harvard in February 1910, and the final version was assembled in Munich in July-August 1911. And I'm reading from Manju Jain. This is from Peter Ackroyd's T.S.Eliot. It's a quotation from that. From a number of fragments written over the past year. It was published in the Chicago magazine Poetry in June 1915. Through the mediation of Ezra Pound. Eliot met Pound in London in September 1914 and later sent him Prufrock and Portrait of a Lady along with some of his other poems. Pound wrote immediately to Harriet Monroe, the editor of Poetry, and informed her that Eliot has sent in the best poem I have yet had or seen from an American. He has actually trained himself and modernized himself on his own. That was what Pound told Harriet Monroe. It is significant that Eliot chose Prufrock to lead his first volume of poems. It was not the first in order of composition in the volume. Conversations Gallant, not included in selected poems, was written in November 1909 before Prufrock was began. And Rhapsody on a Windy Night and Preludes 1 and 2, the primacy accorded to it, however. Preludes 1, 2, and 3 were completed before Prufrock. The poem deserves the primacy accorded to it, however. It represents the summation of Eliot's achievements in the early It represents the summation of Eliot's achievements in his early poetry in its stylistic innovations, its thematic and linguistic complexity, and its enactment of psychic conflicts. And I will go back to showing you pictures again whilst we read this poem, but the poem starts off with an Italian section. I don't know if you have understood that, but that's from Dante's Inferno. Se io credesse che mia riposte fosse, that part. And I'll try and find an audio which includes the Italian part so that you can hear it. But there is a story about this part, the sort of the epigraph. But before we go into the epigraph, I think we should talk about the title. Okay. Eliot probably saw the name Prufrock Litau Furniture Wholesalers on an advertisement in St. Louis, Missouri. That's where Eliot was from St. Louis, Missouri, in America. But he had later become British and stayed over in England for the latter part of his life. The name compounded prude and frock awakens verbal associations of prudence, primeness, prudishness, prurience, dandyism. The romantic expectations aroused by the first half of the title, the love song of, are played off against the somewhat absurd, unromantic sound of the name J. Alfred Prufrock. Right. So, when you look at the title, you have to understand এই যে fragmentary existence এর কথা বলছি, তার সঙ্গে এটাও বলছি যে the love song is an old genre, in fact an age-old genre. But this poem will defy the expectations from a love poem or song. So that is something that we have to keep in mind. You can hear it, all of you, I believe. I mean, if you have hearing problems, do let me know. And so, I mean, he finds this innocuous name for the protagonist, the narrator. The name is used mockingly for a range of unromantic associations that it awakens. It also suggests Prufrock's social class. However, despite the irony, there is a note of poignancy in the fact that an individual possessing this rather absurd name should want to sing of love. Eliot later said that he would probably never have given his poem this title, but for a title of Kipling that stuck obstinately in his head, the love song of Har Dayal. এই যে লাভ সং অফ হার দয়াল, এই কিপলিং এর এই জায়গাটা থেকে তো কিন্তু এই নামটা নেওয়া হচ্ছে. So do you understand the way the title of this poem is created and the way it contrasts with the rest of the poem, if you like? I mean, of course, the first section of the poem creates the sort of sustains the illusion of being a love poem that then is subsequently broken in the later sections of the poem. এটা কি পরিষ্কার? We will get there, but is the politics of the title clear to you? Any questions about this, whatever I've taught up to now? Think about it, take a couple of minutes, ask me questions before I move into the main poem and the epigraph rather, which is extremely important. It is ironical in more ways than one. Firstly, the name of the protagonist is utterly ludicrous. J. Alfred Prufrock, funny name. Prude plus Frock, you find it funny. And it's also ironic because as you read yourself along the poem, you will find that it defies the expectations of the genre of a love song, the typical Elizabethan love song that we have come to expect. ঠিক আছে? এই অবধি পরিষ্কার? Okay. The epigraph that we're talking about here this is Italian. Dante. Dante Alighieri. Inferno. if I thought, if you translate this into English, si credence mia riposte fosse, it means if I thought my answer were to one whoever could return to the world, this flame should shake no more. But since none ever did return alive from this depth, if what I hear be true without fear of infamy, I answer thee. These words are spoken by Count Guido di Montefeltro in Dante's Inferno 27, 61-6 lines from 61 to 66. In the eighth chasm of hell, Dante sees the fate of the evil counselor who had misused their superior wisdom to deceive others. Guido too is punished here for his treacherous advice on earth to Pope Boniface. Each sinner is imprisoned in the flame of his consciousness and tormented by its burning. When the damned speak from this flame, the voice sounds from the tip, which thy name on earth maintains its front. Sorry, which trembles. Dante requests Guido to reveal his identity. So within quotes, so may thy name on earth maintain its front. Guido does so only because he believes that Dante too is one of the damned who will never return to hell. ঘটনা হচ্ছে যে Guido has done what he's done. He's in hell, in Inferno, where the fire burns, and he meets Dante, and whatever questions Dante asks Guido, he seems to think, that is, Guido seems to think that he is talking to someone who is also in hell and will never go back and will never write Inferno. In other words, he is saying something that is not meant to be said. তাহলে এই প্রলগটার মানে কি? এই প্রলগটার একটা মানে হতে পারে যে this whole idea of the poem that is being narrated by the figure of J. Alfred Prufrock is actually a monologue which sounds like a dialogue, প্রথম কথা. And also it is not meant ever to be said, to be divulged, to be discussed with anyone else out there. Prufrock's whole exposition, his whole narrative, is actually for himself, where he does not want to reveal himself in the way he does in this narrative. এই জায়গাটা বোঝা গেল? Where Prufrock is analogous to Count Guido di Montefeltro of Dante Alighieri's Inferno. And I read the translation again so that you can understand it in that context again. If I thought my answer were to one who ever could return to the world, this flame should shake no more. But since none ever did return alive from this depth, if what I hear be true without fear of infamy, I answer thee. These words are spoken by Count Guido di Montefeltro in Dante's Inferno. বুঝতে পারলাম? These words can cause infamy. এবার ভেবে দেখো, the things that you think to yourself are not things that you can reveal to anyone, not your best friend, not anyone, because we have all at some stage in life had dangerous ideas, or our true selves are never revealed. আমাদের বহু রকম চিন্তা ভাবনা আছে about everyone, about our parents, about our lovers, about our friends, about people we know, about our teachers, যেগুলো আমরা কোনোদিন প্রকাশ করব না, never. And Guido believes that he's talking to someone who is in hell and that word will never go out. And in the same way, Prufrock is revealing himself, believing that these words will never go out. Think about this, think about the prologue, think about the title. We will start with the poem in our next class, likely to be sometime tomorrow, or maybe the day after. Probably I might take a break tomorrow, I have some work, but I might be taking a class the day after. So I hope you find this poem as gripping as it is, and I hope you found our class to be useful. Now, if you have any questions, ask that, and then I'll ask Famida ma'am to take over. She might take over here, or she might start another link. I'm not sure. I'll give her a call. But before that, if you have any questions, do ask them. No questions? No questions for anyone? Okay, then there might be ways in which you can hear it out again, but I'll have to see it first. Anyway, so I'm finishing my class. You have the link to your next class on your WhatsApp group. Please move to the next class with Famida ma'am, and I'll see you again maybe tomorrow, maybe the day after. Goodbye for now.